The night was thick with the scent of rain and gasoline, a haze of blue and red lights cutting through the darkness of a quiet Virginia street. The only sound was the soft hum of police radios and the distant cry of a mourning girl whose world had just collapsed. She stood barefoot in the middle of the road, trembling, her hands shaking as she clutched a silver pistol, one far too large for her small frame. Her name was Amara Hill, 16 years old, straight-A student, cheer captain, daughter of Sergeant Marcus Hill, a decorated Navy SEAL who had survived 6 tours overseas, but hadn't he survived a traffic stop in his own hometown? The cameras hadn't he caught everything? They never did. But what they did catch was a man compliant, polite, and calm until 3 officers drew their weapons, shouted commands, and pulled their triggers before he could even blink. The news called it a tragic misunderstanding. Amara called it murder. As the rain poured harder, mixing with the tears streaming down her cheeks, the girl raised the gun toward the line of officers who were now crouched behind their cruisers, weapons drawn, shouting for her to drop it. Her voice cracked as she screamed through the storm, "Why did you kill my daddy?" The words cut through the air like glass. No one answered. They just stared, frozen between fear and shame, knowing that no training manual could prepare them for the sight of a soldier's daughter standing where her father had fallen. "Don't move," one of the officers shouted, his finger twitching on the trigger. "Put the gun down, sweetheart. You don't want to do this." But Amara didn't move. Her eyes locked on the man standing front and center, Officer Daniels, the one who had fired the fatal shot. He was trembling now, his jaw tight, eyes darting to the camera lights blinking from the cell phones recording from every angle. The entire neighborhood had poured out to witness this standoff, people shouting, some crying, others live streaming, knowing that one wrong breath could end in tragedy again. Amara's hand shook as the gun wavered, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it echo in her skull. She wasn't going to shoot. She didn't even know how to. But they didn't know that. She just wanted answers. She wanted them to feel the fear her father must have felt when those bright white lights blinded him before the bullets tore through his chest. "Amara!" A voice cried out from behind the crowd. Her mother, Amara Hill, running barefoot through the rain, her hospital scrubs still stained with the blood of the man she tried to save hours earlier. The wind roared, whipping her hair around her face as the officers looked up in confusion. Spotlights beamed down from above, and within seconds, a convoy of black SUVs screeched around the corner, blocking the road. The cops froze. The vehicles were unmarked, but the license plates, or rather the lack of them, told them enough. From the first SUV stepped a man in full tactical gear, moving with a quiet precision that made every officer instinctively lower their weapons. His name was Commander Jake Reynolds, leader of SEAL Team 9, and one of the men who had served under Marcus Hill. His face was stone cold, unreadable, but his presence alone silenced the chaos. Within seconds, 12 more men appeared behind him, all in black, their insignia patches faded, their movements synchronized. 13 Navy SEALs in total. The brothers Marcus had saved countless times overseas. "Stand down," Reynolds commanded, his voice cutting through the thunder like a blade. The officers hesitated, their training colliding with their fear. "You're interfering with a federal operation." That was a lie, but none of them dared to question it. Amara's grip on the gun loosened as she looked at the men forming a half circle between her and the police line. She didn't know them, but she could see it in their eyes. They knew her father. They loved him. And they were not about to let her die tonight. Reynolds stepped forward slowly, removing his helmet, his expression softening as he spoke. "Amara, your dad was a hero. He was my brother. And he wouldn't want you to throw your life away for justice he already earned. The words hit her like a wave, the kind of words that came not from command but from pain. He died because of them. She cried, her voice raw, the gun shaking again. Reynolds nodded slowly. Yeah, he did. And we're going to make sure the world knows exactly how. But not like this. Put it down, kiddo. Let us handle this. Behind the police cars, Officer Daniels was whispering into his radio, calling for backup, his eyes darting nervously toward the SEALs. One wrong move, and this standoff could explode into a national crisis. The body cams were rolling, the media choppers circling, and the image of a young black girl with a gun facing off against the police, surrounded by Navy SEALs, was already going viral. Reynolds knew they were seconds away from chaos, but he also knew that Marcus's daughter wasn't just some random scared teenager. She was a soldier's child, born into discipline, courage, and love. Your father once told me something, he continued, voice steady despite the rain. He said, my little girl's got more fire than any man in my platoon. He was right. But now you've got to be smarter than them. Amara, don't let them turn that fire into fuel for their story. The girl's chest heaved as the words sank in. Her father's face flashed in her memory, the way he'd smile and tell her, never give them the ending they expect. Slowly, tears streaming, she lowered the gun. The SEALs immediately moved, forming a protective circle around her and her mother. Cameras flashed, officers shouted into radios, and for a moment, no one knew who was in control anymore. Commander Reynolds turned toward the police line, his expression darkening. You men just killed one of our own, he said flatly. You better pray your body cams tell the truth, because if they don't, we will. His words weren't shouted, but the threat in them was unmistakable. Daniels looked like he might faint. The chief finally arrived, barking orders to de-escalate, but the situation had already changed. The balance of power had shifted. As the SEALs escorted Amara and Elena toward the black SUVs, Reynolds leaned down and whispered to her, Your dad didn't die for nothing. There's something bigger behind this, and we're going to find it. You in? Amara looked up, eyes still glistening but now fierce, determined. I'm in, she said quietly. The sound of sirens faded behind them as the convoy pulled away, the rain washing away the last traces of blood from the street. But as they disappeared into the night, none of them noticed the figure standing on a nearby rooftop, a man in a raincoat holding a camera with a military-grade lens. He zoomed in on the convoy, smirked, and whispered into a phone. They took the bait. Phase 1 complete. The black SUVs tore through the rain-slicked highway like shadows moving through smoke, their engines roaring against the wind as Amara sat in the back seat beside her mother, clutching the small dog tags her father used to wear. The rhythmic hum of the engine did little to quiet her trembling hands. She felt numb half from fear, half from the realization that her life had changed forever. Commander Reynolds sat in the front seat, his face lit by the glow of his tablet as he scrolled through classified files that had been sent to him by a secure Navy channel. Every man in that convoy had once served with Marcus Hill. They weren't just brothers in arms, they were family. And Marcus's death hadn't sat right with any of them. The police report had been sloppy, contradictory. The body cam footage had gaps, and the autopsy results had been sealed without explanation. Marcus wasn't the type to resist arrest. He was calm, trained, and disciplined. Something was off. Reynolds knew it. They all did. They're going to call this obstruction of justice, said Lieutenant Cross from the second SUV over the radio. We just pulled a soldier's daughter out of a police standoff. We'll be hunted for this. Reynolds didn't even look up. Then let them hunt, he said coldly. We fought worse. As the convoy sped toward a hidden safe house deep in the Virginia woods, Amara stared out the rain-streaked window, trying to hold back the tears threatening to spill again. Her mother sat beside her, eyes hollow, her fingers clutching a rosary so tightly that the beads had left marks on her palms. Your father once told me, she whispered, if anything ever happened to him, to find Commander Reynolds. He said Reynolds would know what to do. Amara looked up, startled. He knew something was coming? Elena nodded slowly. He didn't say what, just that he'd seen something overseas that scared him more than war. The SUV jolted slightly as they turned onto a dirt road. Outside, the forest loomed like a wall of darkness. The headlights cut through the mist to reveal a concrete bunker, half buried under the earth, surrounded by camouflage fencing and motion sensors. The gate opened automatically as they approached, revealing what looked like a forgotten military installation rusted outside, but alive with technology inside. When Amara stepped out, the rain had stopped, replaced by the low hum of generators and the faint sound of coded radio chatter. Inside, screens flickered with satellite feeds, encrypted files, and classified footage. This wasn't just a safe house, it was a war room. Reynolds led Amara and her mother inside. "Welcome to Echo Base," he said simply. "Marcus helped build this years ago. It's off-grid. No government oversight. No one knows it exists." Amara's eyes widened as she saw pictures of her father on the wall him and these same men smiling in uniforms, arms slung around each other in deserts, jungles, and cities she couldn't name. It hit her all over again that he was gone, that she'd never hear his laugh echo through the house or feel his calloused hand on her shoulder when he told her he was proud. She blinked hard, forcing the tears back. "Why did they kill him?" she asked quietly. The room fell silent. Reynolds turned to face her, jaw tight. "Because he found something they didn't want found." He motioned toward a holographic screen and pulled up the autopsy report. "Your father wasn't just pulled over, he was followed. We tracked the same unmarked sedan in 3 different traffic cameras, same car that was tailing him for weeks. The officers who shot him were part of a new federal police task force that doesn't exist on paper. Guess who funds them?" He tapped the screen again, showing the name of a private defense contractor. Astrodyne Systems? They're building next-generation weapons for the Pentagon autonomous targeting, facial recognition, predictive policing. Your father was investigating their connection to the deaths of several unarmed men overseas. He believed the tech was being tested domestically. He told me he had proof. Reynolds turned to Amara. "And now he's dead," Elena gasped, her hand covering her mouth. "He said he had data on a hard drive, but I never found it after they raided his office." Reynolds exchanged a look with his second-in-command, Cross. "Then that's what they were looking for. If Marcus had evidence linking Astrodyne's software to wrongful deaths, it could blow up half of DC. He looked at Amara. "Your father didn't just die by accident. He was executed to keep that drive from going public." Amara's heart raced. She thought of the man on the rooftop that night, the camera lens glinting through the rain. "Someone was watching us," she said suddenly. Reynolds' eyes narrowed. "Describe him." "Tall, dark jacket, camera." "He was there when you showed up." Cross immediately began typing, pulling up footage from nearby drones. "We'll find him." Hours passed as the team cross-referenced surveillance data, satellite pings, and leaked police frequencies. Then they found it, a name tied to the unmarked sedan, Detective Alan Voss, a former Marine-turned-cop with connections to Astrodyne. He'd been under internal investigation for years for excessive force and lost evidence, but every time charges came up, they vanished. Reynolds clenched his fists. "That's the man who shot Marcus." The anger in his voice was almost palpable. Amara stood beside him, her young face burning with determination. "Then let's make him pay." Reynolds looked down at her, this brave, broken teenager who had lost everything in one night, and saw something of Marcus in her. The fire, the focus. "We'll get justice," he said, "but we do it the right way. We expose them." Meanwhile, far away in a high-rise office overlooking Washington, D.C., a woman in a charcoal suit was staring at her phone, watching a live feed of the news coverage. "SEAL team intervenes in police standoff," the headline read. Her lips curled into a smirk. This was exactly what she wanted. Catherine Vale, CEO of Astrodyne Systems, wasn't just a businesswoman, she was the architect of the shadow network that Marcus had discovered. She pressed a button on her desk phone. "Get me Voss," she said coldly. Seconds later, his voice came through, gruff and uncertain. "Ma'am, the situation got out of hand." I didn't expect the girl to. I don't pay you to expect, Detective, she interrupted sharply. I pay you to control outcomes. And right now, you've got a SEAL unit with a civilian witness who is about to connect me to your mess? She leaned back in her chair. Find them. Erase the evidence, and if you can't, erase them. Back at Echo Base, Reynolds and his men were gearing up for recon. We'll split into 2 teams, he said. Cross and I will hit Astrodyne's regional data center. If Marcus's files are anywhere, they'll be there. The rest of you fortify this base. He turned to Amara. You stay here. No, she said firmly. I'm coming. Reynolds hesitated. This isn't a game, kid. These people will kill you. They already did, she said softly. When they killed my dad, the room went silent again. Reynolds saw the look in her eyes and realized arguing was pointless. She was her father's daughter. Finally, he nodded. All right. You ride with me. As night fell, they moved out 2 vehicles cutting through the back roads toward the industrial outskirts of Norfolk. The facility loomed like a fortress, surrounded by drones and electrified fencing. We'll breach through maintenance access, Cross whispered. Security's running on Astrodyne's AI grid. I'll loop the cameras. Amara followed close, every breath fogging in the cold air. The closer they got, the more she could feel her father's presence, like a whisper pushing her forward. Inside, the corridors were sterile, lit by blue LEDs and humming with servers. We're in, Cross said, sliding his tablet into the terminal. Pulling files now. The screens flickered, lines of code scrolling faster than the eye could follow. Then suddenly, got it. Marcus Hill investigation file. But before they could extract it, alarms blared. Red lights flashed. They found us! Cross shouted. Move! A squad of armed men in black tactical suits stormed the hallway. Astrodyne's private security mercenaries, not cops. Bullets ripped through the air as Reynolds and Cross returned fire, covering Amara as she ducked behind a server rack. Sparks flew, smoke filled the air, and the roar of gunfire echoed down the metal corridors. Reynolds grabbed Amara by the wrist. Go! They sprinted through a side exit, crashing into the night as the facility erupted behind them in flames. A drone overhead tracked their movement until Cross shot it down with a precise round. We got the drive, he shouted, holding up a flash disk. Your dad's files, everything's here. But before they could celebrate, a black helicopter rose over the tree line. Gunfire rained down as they dove for cover. Amara looked up in terror and saw the insignia on the side of the chopper. Astrodyne Security Division. Get to the truck! Reynolds shouted, dragging her through the mud. Cross fired back, taking down 2 assailants, but a bullet grazed his arm. Go! I'll hold them. Not leaving you. Reynolds roared, pulling him along. The truck roared to life as they tore down the back road, tracer rounds lighting the forest behind them. Amara clutched the drive to her chest, her heart hammering. This was bigger than anything she'd imagined. Her father hadn't just been a victim. He'd been a target in a war she hadn't known existed. And now she was part of it.